G'day you mob, and welcome back to the Pouch series that I'm doing with my friends Gregg and Jake from the podcast called The Pouch, all about Australian politics. In the next part of this series, we're going to be answering your questions related to Australian politics. So guys, it's an advanced English series here where we are talking naturally, but it is a little bit difficult at times as there are three of us all having a bit of a laugh, having a spontaneous conversation, and we talk over the top of each other, so don't get too stressed out. If you don't hear or understand every single word that we say, the whole point is to be a fly on the wall and practice your listening comprehension when multiple native speakers are having a spontaneous conversation, and at the same time, you're going to be learning about Australia and Australian politics. So guys, without any further ado, tap the Karawong and let's get into it. Wen Tao Jung wants to know how the government uses its tax money.
Hey, depends on the day. Yeah, look.
At the moment?
It's giving it out.
hence the point, yeah. So
it might be, Jake, it might be a good time to talk just a little bit about state and federal, maybe.
Yeah, okay, I can get into that as well.
Maybe local, state, and federal. Just give us a brief history of the total overview of the government and how they spend their taxes.
I'll try. There's plenty of... So there's local taxes, for example, rates.
Yep.
That's essentially land tax or local land tax. Generally speaking, the council uses those funds to, collect your rubbish once a week. They use it to ensure that your roads are in good order. Your local
crossings,
roads,
they do crossings.
Exactly. They do crossings and all of those sorts of things. They maintain the local area at sort of the ground level. Then you've got your state-based taxes. So they have sales taxes on land. They have, what else?
Assets.
I can't think of too many assets. Yeah, exactly.
What about
asset transfers.
GST? Does that gets distributed out equally, or is it?
No, definitely.
Yeah,
there is
10%.
no. Oh my goodness, no. Yeah, so GST, goods and services tax. It's a federal tax. The revenue from the goods and services tax used to be, I think it was originally envisaged as an equal, would give equal amounts to equal states, but that became, the Tasmanian government really needs some help to fund these programs. Therefore, we're going to give them more money.
Well, and the WA has a big whinge
Western
about this,
Australia
right?
as well.
Yeah, because they get so much GST having to pay that because of the mines, right? But they don't get it back because there's a very low number of people living there, right?
Correct. But in saying that, Western Australia do have a very large amount of money coming to them in terms of mining royalties. So, a little bit on this hand, a little bit on the other. But yeah, look, in terms of taxes, it's a good time to talk about sort of the idea of surplus and deficit, because this was something that was touted by the Liberal Party at the last election. We will bring the budget back into surplus. So a surplus happens when you bring in all of the tax money that you need, and you don't use it on the programs that people want or need, right? That's essentially how you achieve a surplus. We're telling you that we need this money from you, but we're not going to use it on the stuff that you said that you needed. Okay, whereas a deficit is, guys, I recognize that you have this massive need for this thing. Therefore, I'm going to draw deep into, I'm going to essentially create some government debt in order to pay for that service that you need. Therefore, we have a deficit or a negative in the budget that we had made for the country at that time. So, yeah, look, surplus means I got your money, but I didn't use it. I decided I'd get some interest on it. Whereas a deficit is I got your money, and I needed a little bit more in order to pay for that thing that you needed.
But I think it's a good time too to bring up the fact that we spend a lot of our money on state-run health. Like we have a very robust state health system, which I think we're all very thankful for at the moment. Yeah. And I think that, and we also have schools as well. So the states in particular are in charge of their schools. They do get money from the government to spend that on the schools, but essentially the states are in control of that of that money and how it gets distributed to both state schools. And we actually give a lot of our tax money to non-government schools, which is a different topic of itself. But we do that's what we do as well. Yeah, the independent schools. Yeah. So health and education are two huge expendendures, and I think we have an army.
We certainly do.
Just in Queensland, right? In Townsville.
Townsville.
And Darwin.
It's Duntroon as well.
Yeah. I think every now and again they get shipped off to another country to help them or something. I don't know, but yeah. It is one of those things that we invariably need money in order to pay for the programs that people say they want, or economically we look at and we decide that we need it. As Gregg alluded, the federal government doesn't run any hospitals, they don't run any schools, so essentially the federal government provides money to the states in order to have hospitals, to have public hospitals, to have public schools, and as a consequence we're able to care for everyone equitably. So in Australia, assuming that your country has what's it called, Pete, when your country has what's it called, when your country has the ability to be allow you as a citizen of that country to visit public hospitals in Australia? Reciprocal rights. When your country has reciprocal rights, you can visit any public hospital emergency department in Australia and not pay anything. And similarly, in Australia, in our schools, got no, the federal government doesn't have any schools, but they pay money to the states in order to run them.
Because this may have been something that was pretty confusing on the TV recently with COVID, especially, is that all of the different states seem to be doing their own thing, right? And I had a lot of people asking me, why isn't it just the federal government or the Australian government telling everyone that these are the rules?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Do you want me to do that one, Jake?
100%.
Yeah. So I think one of the trends in Australian politics has been more and more sort of decisions being made at the local level. So the sort of more local you can make that decision, the better, because those people on the ground are the people who know their constituents, like the people who vote for them, or the people like the issues that are relevant to that particular community. So there's no point the federal government making all these decisions about what we're going to do and when there was Sydney's got a massive international airport and a massive problem with cruise ships apparently, and with our border control, we got a massive problem with our border control. But so the situation in New South Wales was entirely different to the situation in Western Australia. For us to close our borders from other states and internationally was enormous. Whereas with Western Australia, they were a bit like, well, that's just what we're doing because we're totally different geographically. We've got totally different amount of cases. We totally don't rely on everything that New South Wales relies on. So it was much better for that particular premier and their team of experts to make those decisions for that particular state. And there was also some decisions made even more locally from local councils about which sort of local maybe nature walks to close, or which sort of things to open and which signs to put up. So there were decisions being made at the federal, at the state, and at the local levels, and each one of those decisions had to take into account that particular situation. So yes, we've got a potentially confusing situation where some states have opened their schools, some states haven't opened their schools, some states are saying, nothing's going to happen until a few more weeks and all that sort of stuff. But when you really break it down, those decisions are being made in the interest of that particular community and that particular state or that particular territory, which to me makes sense. We don't want to live in a world where we don't want to live in a country anyway where the government is just saying this is how it is and blah 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 blah. They do that for some things, and they've done that for some things for coronavirus, but certainly the states have been given a lot of powers too.
Yeah, constitutionally, the states are allowed to act independently of the federal government. The federal government is able to take control in certain situations, but generally speaking, they wouldn't do that because that's essentially taking power away from the people who actually deliver the services, i.e., the states.
All right, guys, thank you once again so much for joining me in today's episode. I hope you got a little bit out of this episode and learnt a little bit more about Australia, the Australian political environment, everything like that. And don't forget to go and check out The Pouch, the podcast, where you will be able to listen to episodes released every single week from Jake Farr-Wharton and Gregg Savage. These guys are both Australian and they're very knowledgeable when it comes to all things Australia, but particularly politics. So go and check out the podcast, guys. And until next time, I wish you all the best.